Hello and welcome again to One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe. That's how we reach more people. I'm really excited for our guest today. This was a referral from another good friend of mine. Welcome to the show, Priscilla.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good to have you. So Priscilla actually has been in the beauty industry for about 10 years, and she's found a loophole, which I'm really intrigued by, in the beauty industry to help actually stop human trafficking. She just got back from Thailand before this recording, helping with that kind of thing. With her kids are on the same journey. She had 3 kids and a husband. She says it's a family organization. So let's go back. What got you into the beauty industry, first of all? And, how has that kind of started to transform into such a mission and a cause?
Well, I think my life in general, it has been the mission and the cause that I didn't see coming, I would say. At 17 years old, I really wasn't good at anything. I felt at the time. I could remember sitting on the concrete floor in front of the apartment that we lived in. And the only thing I could think of at the time was smoking and getting high, and hanging out with the wrong people and, sleeping around and not having a job and not having any money and doing all the stuff 17-year-olds sometimes do. And at that time, it hit me that I could not remember what it felt like to feel sober. And so that was a period of my life where I was really trying to find myself. And I got into other industries that I thought would be my career and my future. I did property management for 13 years. And it turns out it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. And so, through some sequence of events, I ended up getting into the beauty industry. And then I realized that that's when I started finding myself, is when I got into the beauty industry. And through my 10 years of being in it, I started learning about all the behind the scenes stuff that people usually don't see, through beauty school and through just being in the industry in general. And that's where I discovered this loophole that can actually help so many kids, and so many young women to be able to prevent themselves from going down the wrong path.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it all really starts with the beauty or the beauty schools, and perhaps, I know everybody knows someone that wants to get out of their circumstances or may not have the resources to get out of their circumstances that they're in, really no matter what age. But I think when you're younger, it really makes a huge impact in who you are going to be as an adult. And so I realized that in being in this career, I didn't find myself until I got in the beauty industry. And making this my career, I learned that I was good at something. And in turn, that essentially built my confidence and self-worth. And the good part of that, of course, is I was making money doing it. So for me growing up, of course, it was drugs and sex and hanging out with the wrong people. But, and that is ultimately what led to me losing my self-worth. And I think that happens with a lot of young women. And so, I do believe that girls who have had a tough go of it can fight to have a better future by building their own beauty or their own business in the beauty industry. And so for me, in the past 6 years, I've helped dozens of girls already. Now, like, all this information is starting to flow in my head, and teaching them how they can do it. So much so that I have a lot of them are still with me till this day. Some of them have moved on, and are continuing to use what they were taught and create success for themselves as entrepreneurs. But the main loophole is in the beauty schools. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually get your license in the beauty industry at 16. And to me, I was dumbfounded when I learned this. And I actually, I'm going to open up my own beauty school. That's the next project that I'm working on. But I believe that a piece of information like this really should be screamed at the rooftops, all the rooftops, because at 16 years old, when you don't have the resources, information like this is invaluable. And so that's one of the loopholes, is figuring out how we can get that awareness out there, especially for those young women and boys also that are perhaps aging out of the foster care system. That's usually one of the demographics that are at most risk for trafficking, because they don't have anywhere to go, and a lot of them don't even have a place to live. And so to be able to obtain a degree in something that is so easily learned, and within 4 to 6 months you can be making a really good wage to be able to provide for yourself, I think is important. And that information is not out there.
Right. Because most people think you have to be at least 18.
Yeah.
And 16, probably a lot of stuff as well. 16's even for a lot of going on out there, I'm sure.
Totally.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's a beauty industry too. So just because, a lot of that human trafficking has to do with, quote, that concept. How have you found that how does the beauty industry itself relate to all of this? How have you found that? I'm curious.
Well, unfortunately, there are those companies that use our industry as a vehicle for that. Mm-hmm. I know, there's articles out there that you can read about. So I guess for me, it's just kind of flipping that on its head. I'm a fighter. I'm a problem solver by nature, and so when I hear articles like that and I see things like that, and then when I learned about this 16 thing, being 16 years old and being able to get into the beauty industry, why not throw a wrench into that and use it?
Have you had a lot of fight back in the industry?
I have not. No, I have not yet. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're a small town compared to other large cities, but I'm determined to get out there and to get out into the larger cities with this information, and I'm not afraid to open up as many salons and as many schools as I need to make a change. And I think that's different.
Sorry, I walked on you there, but as you're opening these up, are you planning, because a lot of people maybe don't have the cash flow to be able, especially at 16, they're running away from home or a bad situation or whatever it is. So is that kind of like where you're going, where there'll be like scholarships? Yes. To get in the industry? Tell me more about that. That sounds really
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked, because in January of this year, I founded a nonprofit called Passion Story, because I believe everybody has a passion, everybody has a story. So now why not melt the two together? So the nonprofit Passion Story will essentially pay their way to get to beauty school through beauty school. And then after beauty school, my nonprofit will also come alongside them and do the necessary training that they would need to succeed.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So, and your whole family, you said, is involved. Your oldest, I believe, is 21.
My oldest is 21.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how they're involved and how that kind of turned into a little bit of a family.
Well, I think, 10 years ago when I learned that I was good at doing nails, that's my forte, is I love doing nails. I found my creative outlet. And I think just watching the journey in general with my husband and my kids were really, clearly my son was 10 years old when I started. So they kind of have grown with me in this industry. And I think the way that they've seen me grow with the beauty industry, anytime I would have that eye-opening moment with the girls at the salon and I would share it with the family, I think they started seeing the same repetition, like the same experiences that I was having. They were able to see it with me. And so I think that not only piqued their interest, but it allowed them to see the vision from from my perspective, instead of hearing it for the first time, they kind of walked alongside with me with it. So now we're all fired up. Now it's all starting to come together. It's all starting to make sense. And I think that's the key, is it just makes sense. I think sometimes if you have to work too hard to make something happen, or if you having to explain yourself too much as to why it makes sense, I think when it's so simplified and it just makes sense, it's that much easier to want to do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were in Thailand. How does, I obviously know how this could fit into North America. How does it fit into other countries?
Well, how it fits into other countries is because, for one, I think this is a global problem. And with the nonprofit, I do believe that it's going to open up doors in other countries as well to be able to bring in the same concept. Because having the school is one thing, and creating that environment where people can come in and get trained and be in an environment where you essentially create a culture where they can thrive in. But being able to pay the way for them to do that, but then the training actually starts after they graduate, because the first year of a service provider's career is the most critical, because that's typically when they quit, because certain things are going to trigger you, especially if you have a history with trauma. And so there's therapy that goes with that. There's a lot of support that goes with that, mental support. And so having that first 12 months, that most critical point, creating a system where you have the support to push you past that. I found in my salon that 100% of the people that I've hired, once they start feeling that confidence and they actually learn that they can actually be good at this, something just shifts. And I've seen it with every single person that I've hired. And so it's that one client that they actually did a service and they were proud of it, where as soon as the client leaves the room, they're holding their phones, they have a picture on their phones, and they're just running around the salon looking for me. And they're like, mom, look what I did. And just that proud moment that they have, like it's like, I'm addicted to that. And I want to be able to give that to everybody. So, and as soon as they've had that moment is when I notice the shift. And once that shift happens, they just take off. They take off. They open up like a butterfly, and they're talking more and they're excited. And that's really when the change happens.
Some inner confidence. Did you have a lot of, as you went into this kind of stuff, did you have a lot of friends and family that kind of questioned where you were at or anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went from having a successful career in property management to being a nail tech, and so they just didn't understand why I was doing it. And in all honesty, when I got into it, I really didn't know why I was doing it either. It was one of those things where I was home and I started doing my own nails, and then my nieces and my cousins and then friends. And a friend of mine told me that I should get licensed, and I never thought of that. And so it just so happens that the same day that we were having that discussion, my husband gets home, and I run to him and I'm like, hey, guess what? I have something to tell you. He's like, wait, before you tell me anything, I was on my drive home, I was thinking about it. And I thought, why don't you get your license in nails? And it was, I was about it. I was like, wow. Okay, I was going to say, I guess I'm going to get my license. So,
cool. So in alignment. So anyway, how did you handle all the other people?
I actually thrive in difficult environments. So I think when people tell me that I can't do something, or I get a little bit of kickback, it just motivates me to keep going.
A lot of people go through that. That's why I ask, obviously, as they go into entrepreneurship, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that would be on here. And as they go into some of those things, people are like, well, I don't know. What were some tangible things that you did that also helped strengthen you as you went into into like changing? Like, were you really conscious of changing your associations? Were you reading more books? Were you listening to audio? What were some things that helped you grow?
Well, I think that for me, what I noticed first was, I think when I learned that not everybody that was in a salon or in a beauty school was reaping the benefits of the industry like I was. And so for me, what really helped me push through that was I just started studying why. Like, why is it that I'm benefiting from this and so many people are not? Because at the time, I did some research and I found that, I don't know what the number is today, but I found that 86% of individuals that go to beauty school end up quitting. And that really intrigued me. And I wanted to learn why. Like, why do people quit when I'm getting so much from it? I know. And I think there's a part of the beauty industry that people don't really think about often, and that is the impact that the client themselves that are coming through the door, that the impact that they have on the service provider. So for many years, I never really shared my story. I'm actually writing a book about it because to me, it's easier to write than just talk about it. And so with many of my clients, little by little, I started noticing that certain things were coming out and I was okay with talking about it. And that in itself is healing. And so when I started seeing this, I started seeing the beauty industry through a different set of eyes. To me, it's not a job. It's not work. It's a healing process that I think anybody could use. Even if you don't believe that you can do this as a career, I think it can still be used as a stepping stone.
Why did you figure out a lot of people quit? And it's not just in the beauty industry. I would say that's pretty much anything. I don't know what the percentage is in nursing. I don't know. It's pretty high. I know entrepreneurship is like 80% in the first 5 years or more than that, quit businesses. So what were some of the differences between someone that could become successful and someone that quit? What did you see?
Well, I think in the beauty industry, and in all honesty, you really could take this into any industry. When you're in a business that is competitive, people are not willing to share secrets. They're not willing to show you exactly what they did, and teach you how to do it. And in the beauty industry, it's even worse because people feel you graduate and you're excited, but then you instantly become competition to the group of people that you're working with in the salon that you're at, because everybody's fighting for a clientele. And so nobody's willing to share. And for me, I just don't think like that. I think there's enough people on the planet to make everybody succeed. So what's the point of withholding information? So when I got into the beauty industry, I noticed that because I experienced it. I would ask questions and nobody wanted to tell me anything. And that really angered me. And so I thought, you know what? If you're not going to tell me anything, guess what? I'm going to figure this thing out. And then I'm just going to sing like a canary. And that's what I did.
So one of the success tips would be like, learn and then share.
And then share. You have to share. You have to share. Because, I mean, why hoard it? You can't possibly service, you can't even really fit less than 1% of your city's population on your books as a clientele. So why hoard all the information? Why not give it to somebody else that might need it more than you do?
So that was one thing that you feel attributed to your success.
Oh, yeah.
What's something else that you feel, because you did a lot of analyzation, which I did too, getting into my industry. Yeah. Analyzation, what were some other things that you saw that could cause someone to quit or someone to succeed?
I think that the confidence and self-worth is a big thing. In this industry, I have found that there's so many that come into the beauty industry as a last resort. This a lot of times isn't their first option. You don't grow up wanting to be a nail tech. You live through life and you have difficulties, and then you end up picking an industry that you feel that you might be able to get something out of it. You hope you might be able to get something out of it. A lot of times it's, your parents saying, what are you going to do with your life? You got to find something. And it's a fast way of getting a license to do it. But what attributes to the failure is if you can't find the confidence within yourself and knowing that you can do it. That's a lot of times where people quit. And I think the confidence comes with lack of training. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be confident. And so I'm just taking all of the issues that I've found, through the issues that I've seen in beauty schools, and how in beauty schools, for me, because I do nails, I just have there's a different passion for me there. But most beauty schools, they tried to push you to do the whole cosmetology program, which ends up being a 1.5-year program. And if you love doing hair, by all means, then you have to do the cosmetology program. But when you want to do just nails or just skin, for example, if you're doing a 1.5-year long course, it's a 1,600-hour course here in New Mexico, but you want to be a nail tech. And not a lot of schools offer just a nail tech program, for example. So if you go to a 1,600-hour course, you're only going to get 2 weeks of training in nails.
Right.
And then about 3 to 3.5 weeks training in skin, if you want to do skin. And then the rest is all hair. So you can imagine, the salon that I opened, I actually made it a point to only hire graduating beauty school students. I don't hire anybody that has experience. So as soon as you graduate, I hire you, and then I take you through my own training. And I found so much that they didn't learn in school because they only had 2 weeks of it. Like, how can you succeed at something if you've only been trained 2 weeks?
So just need better training.
Better training.
Part of it.
Yeah. Better training, and then aligning yourself with someone who's willing to share information.
Yeah. Finding a mentor. So whenever you got into it, were you able to find someone that was able to mentor you? Like you said, there wasn't a lot of people that were helpful, but did you find someone that kind of mentored you and helped you along the way?
Yes and no. When I graduated, I actually flew out to California, because here in New Mexico, there really isn't a whole lot out here. So I flew out to California and paid thousands of dollars to be trained by the top nail tech of that time. And not everybody can do that, right? But I did. And I went out there and I did that. And then when I came back, there was no salon that I can go to where I was able to surround myself with nail techs so that I can have that mentorship. And so I was forced to booth rent out of a small hair salon. Now, the owner of the hair salon was also a nail tech, thank goodness. So she did mentor me to an extent. I was able to pick her brain a lot. But in terms of the business aspect of it and how I was going to succeed, she kind of just allowed me to just do my own thing and didn't really mentor me through that process because I was a booth renter. And in this industry, there's a stigma that when you booth rent, you're on your own, right? Or when you're commissioned, you're on your own. Only when you're an employee does somebody pour into you. And so
find no other places so I want people to listen to this. So she went and paid, Priscilla went and paid a lot of money to learn. So one of the things that I believe entrepreneurs don't do and should do is, invest in their training and themselves, invest in a coach, invest in that kind of thing. So that's kind of why I'm going down this path is what did you do to become successful, and who did you surround yourself with, and what efforts did you put into, whether it was good books, whether it was audio, whether it was when someone wasn't helping you, what did you turn to instead in order to learn how to run a successful business? Because business is business. It doesn't matter if you're nail tech, you're running I'm running a financial company, whether you're running a construction company, it doesn't matter. Business is business. So what were some things that helped you become successful in business in general?
In business, well, it was property management. So I started in that industry when I was 18 and I did it for 13 years. And so I was running somebody else's multi-million-dollar asset.
Right.
And I was really good at it. And so from a business perspective, I already had that experience. So my journey into this was a little different because I gained the business experience first through the first career that I had. And so then when I got into this career, I already understood the value in investing in yourself, the value in paying somebody to teach you and to learn and to do your research and, to read the books and the magazines and I even went as far in property management. I'll just say we're required to shop our comps, right? So you're required to go and pretend like you're looking for an apartment and evaluate and take all the notes on what they did right and what they did wrong. And so because of that experience, I did that as soon as I started in this business, I would go to salons and I would get services. I would get serviced and I would just analyze and take notes on what I liked and what I didn't like. And I just started problem solving from there. So all this information that I gathered, I essentially put it all under one roof when I opened my salon.
That's all. I love that. And like you said, I hope people like this is the stuff that, you know, a lot of people can get a lot of value from is like, you know, your past also can change, like your purpose, your passion, whatever. 13 years you worked in one industry and then you switched industries into something that now has become definitely your passion. Yeah. But I think sometimes people are like, well, I'm not in my passion. Well, maybe it'll change. Maybe you'll find something else. But what you're learning right now will possibly help you in the next phase if you allow your past. Your past can help you succeed in your future. Yes, we'll gain stuff from our past, whether it's like a negative past and we learn what not to do, or a positive past and we learn what to do, but we can learn from that, you know, kind of what you did. And then going around to other businesses, I love that idea.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I think I learned to embrace my past. And that's what I'm actually learning through writing my book even. I'm like, you know, unearthing all these experiences that I haven't really, you know, talked about, some of which I've even forgotten. And now it's all starting to make sense. So just embrace it. You know, the most difficult times in your life, you're going through it because there's somebody else that you're going to run into at one point in your life where you're going to but you're going to want to pour into somebody else because you've been there. And so just embrace it. Embrace it.
And I think it's, I don't know who started it, but I know Ed Milet talks about it. You know, your pain will become like where you give to other people. Like, your testimony, your message, that stuff. But like your pain is really where things start to change. So for other people, you can use those stories. So like you said, we're in, you know, the sex, the drugs, the alcohol, whatever. And that's what's causing you to have the heart and the feeling for the people that are going through some of that now. Because you've grown up, you know, in this whatever Ivy League kind of household and you had done nothing, whatever. Yeah. I don't understand what the people are going through, you know, trafficking at all. Because you're like, I mean, you could try, but you really don't understand where people are at unless you've kind of been through something similar. Oh, yeah. You just don't. So you have to feel it.
You have to, you know, and a phrase I heard one time, and it makes sense to me now, your misery becomes your ministry. And I believe that, you know, I really do believe that. So embracing those difficult times really is what's going to open up the doors for what your purpose is.
That's so cool. So where do you see this? Like, you want to start opening a school? Are you going to have multiple schools? Where do you see this going in the next, you know, 5-10 years?
Well, it's interesting. So I believe, you know, my parents brought me to, well, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and we all hated them when they brought us to Albuquerque. Albuquerque is it's a desert. We moved here from South Florida, so you can imagine the culture shock.
Oh yeah.
You know, but I do believe that there's a reason why I'm here in this state and in this city. And for me, it's a good, now knowing, you know, from a business standpoint, this actually is a good city to really hone in on what your systems are going to look like. So what I'm doing here in Albuquerque is I'm just creating a prototype, right? So having the salon, the school, aligning with other salons and other local schools, and then using the nonprofit to pay the way for a lot of these young girls. And so just honing in on what that is supposed to look like and mastering that system so that I can essentially then duplicate it. And once I get to that point, I foresee me, I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, I should be able to start duplicating it. And once I start duplicating, like, I don't know, like the risk factor for me just doesn't exist. Like I'm not afraid to just jump. I can see myself just traveling all over the world and just planting things. You know,
and obviously you're, like you said, your family's super supportive, and that's very important and not always the case.
Yeah, I know. And that's honestly how I know that I am going in the right direction. You know, you have the family support. My husband's on board. And he's going to retire in about 4 years or so. And so I see us traveling together and just traveling to different communities and seeing which communities are going to be impacted the most by something like this. And just start building from there.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah. So in wrapping up, we have 3 final questions I always ask, and then, you know, anything you want to kind of leave that we didn't touch on for our listeners. So first final question, yeah, if someone's looking for their purpose, what is one sentence that you would say that could help them find their purpose?
Wow. In a sentence, that's a loaded question. To find your purpose, honestly, I'm going to go back to embracing your challenges in life. So whatever challenges this is going to be more than a sentence. I don't know how I could put this into one sentence, but whatever challenges you face, whatever misery you've had to endure, go back, sit down, look at it, and then look at the environment that you're in and figure out how you can use that to better your situation for somebody else.
Figure out your misery. Yeah. Number 2, and I'm sure you have more than one, but what comes to mind? What's your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote. Oh, Lord, there's so many. I would have to say what we just talked about. Your misery becomes your ministry.
That's awesome. And number 3, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
Determined.
Determined, that's a good one. All right. So let's say someone jumps up to you in a coffee shop and they're like, Priscilla, I listened to that podcast. It was awesome. I love what you're doing. You know, I am struggling in some areas. And what is something that maybe we didn't touch on that would help someone that's maybe listening? Maybe they're in an abusive situation. Maybe they're in a relationship. And maybe it's not to the point of human trafficking, quote unquote, but not a good situation. What are something that we maybe didn't touch on that might be able to help someone like that?
For one, I would say really do some research and plug into the local organizations in your city. There's so many organizations out there that help people in that situation. And I think not being afraid to walk in the door and ask those questions, and really not being afraid to just speak out. That's a big one. And I think utilizing the organizations that you have in your own town is important. And they're gonna be able to point you in the right direction, and they're gonna have a multitude of different resources that you can utilize. You know, and then don't count out the beauty industry. Just don't count it out. It's something that is really simple to learn that brings a big impact. And there's a lot that we didn't touch on, but yeah, this industry is just like I said, it's easy to learn and you can make really good money doing it. And I think a lot of times for somebody in that particular environment, a lot of times the reason why they don't leave is because they don't have any resources. They don't have the income to sustain themselves. And the beauty industry is an easy way to do that.
That's awesome. I love it. Perfect. Thank you so much for being on. As always, guys, make sure to follow Priscilla. We'll have links and whatever in the show notes. Make sure to reach out to her if you have some questions or you know, anything like that, or feel like you can maybe help in some ways or whatever. Really appreciate having you on. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all of the good stuff. Together, if we can change one life at a time, together we can change the world. Thank you so much for being on today, Priscilla.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.